Lagos. How are we doing? Have you had a good day so far? Fantastic. I'm very excited to be here, and a huge commendation to the leadership of Lagos State Government for putting this together. I think this event really addresses two things that are very important: technology on the one hand, and the creative economy. And one thing that we can really talk about as Africans, as Nigerians, is our immensely rich cultural heritage. We know that from music to fashion to film to lifestyle, entertainment, arts and crafts, we have a lot to offer. And it's really great to see increasingly that creative potential taking center stage. And increasingly as well, there are a number of benefits that we're seeing as we grow and really take the stage from a creative perspective. One is just the fact that we're increasingly able to share our culture and our diversity with the rest of the world, and also with the advent of a lot of technology tools, also being able to monetize that talent and that creative content. We talk a lot about diversifying our economy. One of the great things happening today is the fact that with digital platforms, we have an opportunity to monetize and share our creativity with the rest of the world and attract foreign investment in. So that's a way of diversifying the economy. We're exporting culture, exporting our talents, and that's increasingly contributing to the economy. We heard the governor mention earlier this morning that the creative economy contributes 6.1% to global GDP. And in most countries, the creative economy accounts for 2 to 7% of GDP. When you look at the contribution from Africa to the global creative, the creative economy in Africa to global GDP, it's actually less than 1%. So even though we're excited about the developments that we're seeing, we're excited about the trends, there's still a long way to go. If we look at some of the figures up here, there's a projection that the creative economy can contribute by 2030 to Africa to the tune of $500 billion. Now, how we define the creative economy continues to evolve. You know, we can be talking about creative exports, we can be talking about music, fashion, lifestyle content, and so on and so forth, right? And so you may see different numbers when it comes to estimating the potential of the industry. But I use this number because it's the largest I've seen so far. And to actually bring to context the fact that even though this seems like a large number, 500 billion, when you consider the fact that the projection for Africa's GDP by 2030 is going to be 3.1 trillion, it's actually a small number. We should be doing a lot more, given that if there's one thing we're known for, it is our creative talent, right? We should be dominating the space. We should be exporting at scale, right, in this space. And so it's really important to look at what's going to accelerate growth in this space. How can we get more monetization for our creatives? How can we enable our creators to be able to share their work more actively and more successfully with the rest of the world? And in Nigeria, which is the bottom figure, the Ministry for Culture and the Creative Economy also projected a goal to increase by 2030 the contribution of the creative economy in Nigeria to GDP to $100 billion. That's progress from where we are, but we can see that there is a lot of headroom when you compare that with our overall GDP and the opportunity that exists. The good thing as well, when we think about creativity, is the fact that Nigeria is leading the pack on many levels. If I just take a few platforms, so for example, Spotify, earlier this year they released the top 10 most streamed African artists on the platform. You'll see that 9 out of the 10 are Nigerian artists. If you look at Netflix, you'll see similar trends. If you look at other platforms as well. So YouTube is another one. One of the things that we're seeing more broadly is that content creation and consumption is growing on a year-on-year basis. The picture on the left is from Mark Angel Comedy. Some of you may be familiar with Emanuela, the comedian on YouTube. A young Nigerian girl. She was in primary school, very creative, very funny, basically. And with her uncle, they started creating skits on YouTube. And because the content was great, it became very popular and was consumed by audiences, not just in Nigeria, but around the world. And in 2017, their channel on YouTube hit 1 million subscribers. Now, that was a unique achievement at the time, to the point that we actually called them out and gave them a plaque. I was running Google for West Africa at that time. So we called them out and gave them a plaque in recognition of that achievement, which was rare. But fast forward to today, we have several channels in Nigeria, over 45 channels that have exceeded 1 million subscribers. And what that means is very likely on each of these channels, you have hundreds of millions of views. So, upwards of 100 million, in some cases 300 million, in some cases over 1 billion views on content. Why is this important? It's important because each of those views translates into money. You can monetize these views. That's what I was talking about earlier about country. Another great development is the fact that we are taking center stage and increasingly being recognized globally. We're seeing more Nigerian and African artists being recognized globally, from the Grammy Awards to the Billboard Music Awards, BET Awards, etc. For categories like, Afrobeats. Afrobeats is more and more becoming mainstream globally. For positions around international arts, so new international artists, and even other categories as well. So more and more we're seeing that presence of African creative culture and art on the global stage. Now, there are a number of factors driving this growth. First and foremost, of course, is the fact that we just have our own innate creative potential. We're very creative people. We have a rich cultural heritage. We also have a large youth population. Over 70% of the population is less than 25 years old. And, with that comes a lot of, creative energy, digital savviness, and consumption on these platforms. It's great to see policy, government leaning into the space, listening to the Honorable Commissioner earlier. It was great to hear about, the KITE project, the Innovation Fund, the Fund for Creators, and those types of interventions. They do go a long way. But overlaying all of this, a lot of the revolution that we're seeing is driven by technology. Marry the creative energy with the digital platforms that exist, and you have an explosion. We're seeing more internet users come online in Africa. The cost of smartphones have been going down, and so more people are able to afford smartphones, and that has made content creation really easy. I was sitting beside our dear Uche, the founder of Bella Niger, and I saw her with her phone actually recording content from this session. I'm sure in a few minutes we'll see all that content on Bella Niger, and it would look fabulous just using your phone. And that's what a lot of creators are using. That's why it's so easy to create content today, right? Because with your phone, you don't need huge production budgets, etc. With your phone, and there are all kinds of free editing software as well. You know, you can be up and running for very little. And we also have a proliferation of digital platforms that make it possible to upload content, to broadcast that content, and also to monetize content. So, you know, this digital revolution is really fueling the growth that we're seeing, especially when we think about scale. And digitization has transformed how we deliver content. On the left, those were real pictures from Alaba markets. I do remember in around 2011, 2012, when we were just starting to onboard content creators onto the YouTube platform. We were working with people like Jason Njoku of Iroko TV, Afri Nolly, Real Nolly, Ben Murphy International, right? Those were the early people that were looking at digitizing Nollywood content and putting that online. You know, we spent some time understanding the industry and also visiting the market. And I'm sure a number of you may remember, well, it depends on how old you are, but I think those that have been around for a while will recognize the pictures on the left. That was the state of Nollywood. That was the vehicle for delivering Nollywood content. But if you fast forward to today, we have this proliferation of platforms that enable streaming, content storage, and sharing, you know, from Netflix to Apple TV, YouTube, etc. So even the way we deliver content has just really been transformed with these technology platforms. But, you know, there's still a huge potential. We are just starting out. When we think about the possibilities with technology in line with creativity, we're seeing emerging technologies really transforming the creative industries globally, and we're seeing evidence of that happening in Nigeria and across Africa as well. We're seeing more the use of drone technology for, you know, media production, film, TV. You know, with some movies these days, we have fantastic aerial views of, say, Lagos, where you get a really nice view of the city. A lot of this is enabled by drone technologies. Artificial intelligence being used to personalize music and film preferences, and in some cases to actually create film, to create content, right? 3D printing to produce crafts when we think about our sculptures and arts and crafts. Augmented reality and virtual reality, different applications from fashion shows, you know, featuring invisible models, to also just immersive experiences in gaming. Internet of Things, cloud computing, you know, when we think about connectedness, storage, access to the digital platforms, and even blockchain technology, you know, certifying the originality and ownership of unique artworks. So these are just some examples of the possibilities and the direction that the industry is approaching. We're also seeing a lot more collaborations and tech-enabled partnerships. It's great to see a lot of collaborations between our artists in Nigeria and across Africa, and global artists, you know, Burna Boy and Coldplay, the South African designer, you know, in the fashion space, partnering with Timbaland, Thames and Drake. These are some examples. And also, from an organization perspective, we're seeing, you know, partnerships like streaming platforms partnering with telcos to be able to bring that content in a more cost-effective manner to users. We're seeing music channels and, you know, social media platforms collaborate. For example, Trace and TikTok, record labels and streaming platforms. So, you know, more and more we're seeing these experiences, these partnerships, this fusion, right, of our Afrobeats, our African culture and heritage with more contemporary music and content globally. And that's really expanding our influence and footprint on the globe. So it's great to see these developments. I mentioned that there's a large headroom for growth. We're still just scratching the surface. The creative economy, in real terms, should be contributing a lot more to our GDP. It should be the oil of this economy because it's something that we have innately as Nigerians. But there are some things that are required to be able to fuel that growth. One, of course, is broadband infrastructure and more broadly, access. Because when we're talking about streaming, that requires huge bandwidth. We're talking about data. When we talk about recording content, we're talking about affordable smart devices and smartphones. So everything in the bucket of access, initiatives that can help make access more available and affordable are very important. Investment in the creative sector. We heard Kunle Afolayan mention some things about that, right? Establishment of hubs, like I think it was CAP that he's created. It's great to hear that. And to hear the plans for a creative center in Lagos. These hubs are very important. In the tech space, they've been tried and tested as great ways to foster innovation, growth, creativity, and scale, right? Bringing like-minded people together, giving them access to world-class infrastructure, enabling knowledge sharing to just really help them to move from A to B, from idea to market. So a similar concept, because in many ways the creative economy is similar to the knowledge economy, right? And so, establishment of creative hubs would be really important. Mentoring and support for emerging creators. I know we did, a lot of work just training people on things like how you digitize content, how you tag it, how you build an audience. You may have the creative talents. That's one part of it. It's just like like having a great idea. That doesn't mean you will run a successful business, right? So you may be creative, you may have some great ideas, but you need support. You need mentoring to be able to take that and make it something that has a wider appeal. There are techniques to building your audience. There are techniques to how you engage with digital platforms as opposed to traditional platforms. And so that mentoring and support cannot be taken for granted and is really important, and just really supporting, championing local businesses. One of the great things about when we talk about the African Renaissance, one of the great things is that there's a lot of local pride, right, in our content. Local fashion, local music, right, and our film. We have that sense of local pride. And so, more and more, we can provide that support for local content. Investment in human capital, that's really obvious, ensuring that we're nurturing creative talent and also helping to infuse digital literacy, right, in our curricula, and also, in different ways, learning hubs, just really supporting people around, maximizing digital. Access to finance and to global markets, that's a very important piece. It's great to see a number of events, some of them happening in Lagos, right? But across Africa, so, Afrochella, and a number of other events as well, Lagos Fashion Week. These are great for bringing attention, converging people who are interested in the industry, right? And showcasing the talents, the products that exist. So we should have more of these. They should be encouraged, right? Because, they become melting pots for investors, for creators, for, even solution providers, technology experts, etc. And then we can have a lot more growth. That can really stimulate the industry and facilitate access to wider markets. And the final thing there is local platform development, which I'll come to. But enabling policies, that goes without saying, intellectual property protection, promotion of cultural exchange, PR, our national PR, and also, financing. And it was great to hear some of the initiatives by the state in this regard, particularly around providing funding to the creative sector. Sorry, just one more thing in closing. So there's a lot of talk about the African Renaissance and the fact that this is Africa's decade. I do believe that this can be Africa's decade if we do the right things. And it's really important for us to start to look very consciously at how we can really take the potential, the creative talents, the seeds that we have, and scale them. What needs to happen? Where are those areas where we see opportunity to be able to go further? What are things we can do as individuals? So for everyone listening, if for example you have a creative interest, be inspired by some of the numbers and the examples I just shared, and just go online and see what you can do with these platforms, right? Lean in and start to, and the more you test things out, the more you're able to expand that. So that's on an individual level. But even on a broader level, on an institutional level, one of the things that, one of the observations is the fact that we have a lot of great global platforms, right? And they're fantastic. But something can be said for localized platforms that are built with the psychology of the local audience in mind. So for example, we see this a lot in Asia. There are platforms like WeChat, Kakao Talk, Snow, etc. WeChat has 1.3 billion users, just addressing the Asian market, right? Twitter, X, has 587 million users. Compare that to 1.3 billion, right? Of course, Instagram has about 2.3 billion. But the point I'm making is, it would be great to see more local platforms emerge where, African content is front and center, naturally exposed, and that are built based on the psyche and the realities of this environment. And I think, there's a lot of potential, a lot of room for growth. And I think it's, when I look ahead, it's very exciting what's possible in the creative space in Nigeria and Africa. Thank you very much.